The MBTA recently expanded its bus service in pre-dawn hours in a one-year pilot program. The service will be available 7 days a week as early as 3:20 in the morning. The service includes locations in Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury, and Logan Airport. To tell us about the service is the MBTA's Chief of Operations and Oversight, Jessica Casey. Thank you very much for being with us, Jessica.
Thank you.
First of all, how is this service doing so far?
It's doing fantastic. We're very excited to be able to see three main takeaways, I think, from the first week of service. So early morning service started April the 1st, which is our spring rating, what we call our spring rating when the spring schedule comes out. What we've seen is three major takeaways. One, it's connecting communities that have not been connected before early in the morning. So an example of that is Route 31. We see it going from Mattapan to Forest Hills. We see approximately 45 people taking that early morning, the 4:38 a.m. Bus route. And so we've seen that, which is very exciting. The second takeaway that we've seen is that we're learning as we go along. And what that means is that when we look at numbers for the Route 109, for example, which goes from Malden to Sullivan Square, we noticed that on Monday of last week, we had 6 people on the morning bus, which we felt was very light. Tuesday, we actually tried an operational change. We waited for 3 extra minutes, and those 3 extra minutes let us carry 40 people. So we took 40 people on that early morning route. And then I'd say the third takeaway is just that in general, the routes are working. The early morning service is working. We're seeing an average of 55 people each and every weekday morning on the 104, which is another route that goes from Malden to Sullivan Square. So we're really optimistic about the first week of service that we've seen.
Talk about the people riding these buses. These are not party goers. These are people who do important things.
That's right. So what we wanted to do was really connect people to economic development opportunities, and we wanted to be able to connect different neighborhoods to downtown Boston. So what the early morning service offers is an opportunity for riders to get that early jump in the morning. That means that they can get an earlier train when the train service starts. So what we hope will happen, and what we hope is that the riders who are seeking that early morning service are those folks who really need to get in for their work at hospitals or different institutions, maybe downtown to be working in facilities, those people who are working shift work that may not have had an option before.
What's also new is the service on the Silver Line. There's a new branch going to Chelsea. I know our show doesn't cover Chelsea, but people from Chelsea coming into Boston, we need to know about that.
Absolutely, and the service goes both ways. So it's folks getting from South Station to the Seaport District, from Seaport to Airport Station, and then Airport Station over to Chelsea. So we have 4 brand new stations in Chelsea. This service starts April the 21st. And again, we're really excited about this. This is the first major expansion of service we've seen since 2007, since the Greenbush service. And we're looking at almost an estimated 9,000 people per weekday using this service.
I know a lot of people who have options might say, buses, they're slow, they stop a lot, they get stuck in traffic. But 4 in the morning, I think it's a breeze maybe, right?
Well, we're hoping anyway, and it's a really good indicator on how the bus moves through the system or through the road network when the congestion isn't always there, right? So when we're working with folks like the City of Boston on dedicated bus lanes and transit signal prioritization, it really gives us a good benchmark of what we can see for travel times when the roads are a little bit more clear.
This has been the news, and we're talking with Jessica Casey from the MBTA. Jessica, this pilot program follows 2 others that didn't work out so well, and I guess one of the problems before was getting enough revenue to cover the cost. How does this one stack up?
So the budget for early morning specifically is just over $1 million. And what we're hopeful is that as ridership grows, we will start to see the subsidized ride lower or close the gap. So it really is dependent on ridership. It's a 1-year pilot, as you mentioned. So if we see ridership grow like we saw in week 1 and the beginning of week 2, then we're really optimistic about being able to understand how riders need to access service.
What's also different about this particular pilot is that it comes after a huge amount of really dedicated input from, I guess, transportation advocates. Talk a little bit about that process.
Sure. So we've been working with advocates and stakeholders that are very geared at transportation systems supporting neighborhoods and riders getting to economic development opportunities. And I think this is really what the service speaks to, trying to connect communities, trying to get folks downtown in the morning. Late night, would say is a little bit different than early morning, but we've been working very closely, and I would say over the last number of years, we've had regular meetings with stakeholders to understand the different perspectives of what is required and what service we should be piloting.
After a really terrible winter about 3 years ago, the T made some progress on correcting those missed bus trips. But I guess there's also been some lost ground since then because of some drivers not coming in. So is there anything planned to deal with that?
Yeah, so you're referencing the drop trips conversation that we had with the board a couple of weeks ago and some news that's come out since then. And what we've seen is that we have a number of drop trips, and we know we have a number of drop trips. Normally they impact key bus routes to the greatest extent. And the reason for that is because there's a higher number of vehicles and operators who are required to offer that service. In saying that, we have a number of different opportunities or initiatives to be able to explore in closing that gap. I think the main takeaway here is that we're committed to dropping the number of drop trips. There's policies we can put in place, ways that we can practice oversight to be able to close that gap, and then also a resource question as well. How many operators might be needed to be able to close the drop trips?
Now, I know there are a lot more details to explain to people about the locations of the new Predawn service, and you have a place online where people can check that out?
We absolutely do. So you can visit mbta.com/early morning.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Jessica Casey from the MBTA.